Hello and welcome to Stripping the. Oh wait, no, it's a remix. It's a D&D takeover. Everybody get on the floor, put your hands in the air where we can see them because it's a D&D takeover. It's Deni and Denz for a takeover on Stripping the Dipping. I have the lovely Deni, aka FIAGIRLY, on the pod today. Deni, how are you keeping?
Hello.
Hey.
Thanks for having me. I'm great, thank you. It's a pleasure being here.
Oh, we're so happy to hear you. And in fact, we know you're a bit of a celebrity, or you are a celebrity indeed. We're very enlightened to hear some news that you're part of a project and flew out for the Spanish Grand Prix. Could you share some more and just enlighten us about this awesome experience?
About the Spanish Grand Prix, you said.
Yeah, I think you flew out for the Spanish Grand Prix, no?
No, I had something some work to do for the Monaco Grand Prix instead. Oh yeah,
Okay,
sorry. Last
jeez.
yes. Yeah, so I was needed because of the Monaco Grand Prix. So that's why we couldn't record last week. But yeah, it's a bit of a still in the works and still a bit of like a lay low situation. So hopefully I'll be able to share soon. But the reason why
Okay.
we couldn't, yeah, is because I was flying literally when we had to record. I think it was Monday, 8 we were recording, and then I got to like work and I had to fly. I think it was like evening, so 7 I would be like offline from like 7. So I just really couldn't do it. It was for this weekend instead.
Oh, well, you see, Deni literally is a superstar. She's like next level. Come on, guys. And again, just for those who live under a rock, know Dwayne Johnson here. Like, FIA Girly is probably one of the most reputable people on F1 Twitter. Honestly, like, I commend her so highly. She's so knowledgeable about the sport. She has great insight into so much of what's going on. And I think she's probably one of the most trusted individuals within the space. So it's an honor to have you on. But, Deni, could you, I mean, I always love to ask this question to all of our guess anyway. Like, where did your love for Formula One begin?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So, obviously, I know Formula One from like growing up and stuff like that, but I never really watched it as aggressively, I want to say, as I do now. I think last time I watched a Formula One race, like before all of this and FIA Girly existing, Sebastian Vettel was still world champion. It was just like him, all cameras on him. So that was quite long ago. And then I think I got tired at some point of football, so I loved football in my life. So I think last year, 2 years ago, last year maybe, I don't know timeline very well. I was just tired of football. I was like, I want to get into something new. I want to find out something, get into something more deeply into some other sport, something. And my friends used to watch Formula One a lot, so I was like, you know what? Let me get into it. What's that about? What constitutes Formula One, because it surely can't be just cars going around the track, right? And then ever since I started finding out about like tires and engineering and aerodynamics and all of that, I just fell in love and I was like, whoa, I'm never leaving this place. And so that's how it started. It was basically me being tired of Barcelona losing all the time and being like, great, I need something else to entertain me.
Well, obviously, Formula One makes a great way to fill that space. And, when you support a winning driver in Lewis Hamilton and, just the spectacle of the sport as well, going to so many different countries as well, I can definitely see the appeal. And you joined during like a great period as well. Even this the Sebastian Vettel period was fascinating because at one stage we had like multiple world champions. You had Lewis,
Yeah.
you had Vettel, you had Michael Schumacher still around in the earlier 2010s, you had Raikkonen, you had Alonso, which we'll get onto that L retirement plan guy
Yeah.
later on. But yeah, this is a great period of time to be following it and still here with us today. So I'm so happy. Where I'm not so happy is now I have to go through the disastrous monstrosity that was the Monaco Grand
Oh,
Prix because
tell me about it.
tell me about it. Just like
I picked such a bad weekend because I feel like I would have loved being in the Spanish Grand Prix coverage. It was like, yeah, we were faster than everyone. We're doing it. The car's back, and now we're just here like, oh, Denny's in for boring race. Come on, guys. Cheer
It's always
up.
the case, isn't it? It's always the case. And even earlier today, I was speaking to like Georgina. I said this
Yeah.
might possibly be the shortest episode ever in history because that Grand Prix was absolute arse cheeks, man. Like it was a 1 out of 10. Wouldn't recommend. It was a snore fest. But I mean, there are still a few takes and a couple of discussion
Yeah.
points for us to get through. So we're still happy to do that, of course, for all of our listeners. Denny, let's start with the big elephant in the room. What are your
Let's
thoughts about this most recent race that we had at Monaco? Do you even believe or feel that the Monaco GP even deserves a return next year, given its limitations and a lot of the topical issues that cropped up this week once again?
Here's the thing. I don't think so. Like I understand Monaco history. I'm a big fan of history and I feel like Monaco is just standing because of that. Because that
Mhm.
one event that everyone wants to go to, that everyone knows it's like going to be all glitz and glam and boats and meeting your celebrities, da 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 da. People come from the US to go to Monaco and it's that spot in Europe that you want to be at because you're wealthy and you have the money to, you know what I mean, I don't think it's a place for races. I was listening to a podcast this morning. I don't even remember who it was who said it, but they said Monaco is. I think it was Spanish probably. He said Monaco is a non-event literally because I feel like, and maybe we get into this when we talk about the race specifically, but drivers can do whatever they want on that track because they don't miss out on anything. They can literally drive really, really slow, and there's nothing that's going to happen to them. And so when you want to watch racing and you want you to see your driver come from that P6 to P1 and winning the race and maybe cool strategies and stuff like that, Monaco isn't that race the race for that. You're never going to get that from Monaco. I personally wouldn't mind if it wasn't there. But if someone invited me and said, "Hey, do you want to come down to the paddock in Monaco?" I was like, "Yes, I'm there on the next flight." So it's more of like you being there, the experience, or everyone flashing photos and all that, not more for sitting at home and being like, "Hey, yeah, let's watch Monaco." That's my take on it, at least.
No, I definitely agree with you on that one, Denny. And it's for me as well kind of a mixed bag because on one aspect, yeah, I get the commercial aspect of it, and it's like one of the most prestigious, and it's pretty much the crown jewel on the calendar in terms of high prestige events and the hype that goes around it. I guess also it's one of the shortest laps on the calendar, and just the element of it. I think Nelson Piquet once said quite happily that like driving around Monaco is almost like riding your bicycle in your living room, which is a great analogy. Shout out to
Yeah,
Nelson there. But yeah, I mean, I see the appeal in terms of the challenge and also just like what opportunities it gives the celebrities, for example, to go and to be so close up and personal with the cars. But as
yeah,
you were said as well, you're completely spot on with that too. Like in terms of just the watcher from home or just like the average fan, I feel
yeah,
that the cars and the racing almost has been quite like I guess dated in terms of just what we're seeing in terms of the content. Not really many overtakes over there. Again, the cars in the aerodynamical sense have improved in terms of cars being able to follow each other. But then in terms of this practical kind of like low speed corners and very tight chicanes and 90-degree corners
yeah,
and street circuits, they're very cumbersome and like very difficult to drive even in slow speed conditions. So that was one thing. And then what annoyed me as well, I wanted to delve in with this a bit with you too, Danny, is this the narrative behind it because due to some torrential rain that came in, the FIA for some weird reason, like for me as well, I wasn't too happy about this. They delayed the start of the Grand Prix. Some were saying
mhm,
it could be due to some technical issues with the lighting system for the lights to go green. Other people were saying that there was really a heavy bank of rain and they didn't want to send the drivers out in those conditions over safety concerns. But just generally speaking, too, just Martin Brundle and Crofty when they're in the commentary box, like, oh no, this isn't on, it's not acceptable, we need to get a race on today, blah, 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 blah. But then if I rewind maybe 6 or 7 months ago when we were at Spa, the narrative
yeah,
with the media was completely different and they couldn't
yeah,
give a monkeys about whether a race was supposed to be driven or not. It only
yeah,
seemed to me, in my opinion, that Crofty and Martin Brundle were so vocal this time is because they know that in terms of the commercial aspect, if a race was not to be run at Monaco, then all the high profile people that paid the money or even the TV and sponsors and stuff like that, it wouldn't be a good look. So what's your
yeah.
take on that too?
I think where we're standing now, we're kind of a bit like between like a rock and a hard place
Mm,
because do we want like F1 and FIA to enforce what we've been asking for, or do we want them to continue freestyling as they were, right? So when I was watching that in my head, I'm kind of thinking, well, it's kind of hard to preempt weather in Monaco. That's for sure. Everyone knew that because from coming into Barcelona, everyone was like, okay, it's going to rain. No, it's not going to rain. Now it's raining. And even the rain only came 5 minutes prior to everyone was sitting waiting on the grid, right? So I think it's something even like Horner mentioned is like you can argue both ways and say, let's start the race as it is, and then if it comes down to it, we'll put a safety car, put everyone inside, or just wait out until it's a little bit better. So what is the right decision, right? I think,
Mhm.
in my opinion, it's a hard one to tell, but in my opinion, I think waiting out is always the best decision, especially after Spa, because we got a shit show of a race last year, which was them just going around in safety cars. And what if that was to happen again in Monaco? What would have been the fans' reactions? Would it be, hey, you were putting danger, the drivers in danger? Why are you putting them out there? And we know, like you were saying, Monaco has these tight corners. It's very slow, but it's also very tricky to go around the track, right? And so it would have been leaving the drivers, okay, yeah, go on, start the race, and then first one is crashing in the first corner or going into the chicane and just missing completely anything in there. Do you know what I mean? So I think waiting is always, I'd rather prevent than be sorry for it after.
Mhm.
So I think waiting now was probably the best decision in that circumstances, because it did start raining a lot and then they just didn't know what was going to come after that. Well, in terms of money, maybe isn't the smartest thing, but we have to think that safety is paramount. And if safety is paramount, then we need to put everything aside and be like, hey, okay, these are drivers that might be in danger if we put them outside on a wet track, especially in Monaco. Do you know what I mean? So I think,
Absolutely.
yeah, I wasn't too fussed about it, honestly.
Sure. And just to go on to the next question, because we go from pain to more pain. What was your take on Mercedes this week with the W13? Because I mean, we had some
Uh,
upgrades come through at Spain. In
yeah.
Barcelona, the W13 seemed to finally get its check in place. You know, it stopped porpoising and twerking all over the place and seemed quite compliant. But then
Yeah.
obviously you take that car, you put it on a completely different track where the kinematics are completely different. Obviously, it's traditionally just normally like a public road that's converted for this special event once a year and whatnot too. And it just went from going forward in Spain to being in Monaco with pain. What was your take on this? The trickiness of that car, like even with the upgrades, and from a technical point of view, like did you anticipate that maybe Mercedes would have some of the issues that they had had earlier on in the year, like prior to the upgrades?
Honestly, I didn't. I didn't because of how not just how Spain went, but specifically how the team reacted to going into Monaco, and it was kind of like, okay, yeah, we're coming in, we're bringing in some parts that we have in the pipeline, we're doing some work on this. It's just the slow corners that we need to work on because obviously, Barcelona is a bit more fast. You don't need as much downforce as you have in Monaco, right? So you're thinking, right, they only need to work on the slow speeds, and they know that they have that on their their works, right, in their pockets, because Chauvelin's hardly telling you that everything's working fine now. The bounce is gone. You're seeing these graphs on F1. So there's no way you can look at the performance in Barcelona and say the fastest cars aren't going to go perform well in Monaco. And in my opinion, it wasn't even underperforming because the cars were fast, right? It's just little mistakes that started costing them a lot more than what we would have expected, in my opinion. So, see,
Sure.
for instance, the mistakes that Loris made in qualifying shouldn't have been there. And maybe if we look at sectors and he wasn't improving in this and that, but a Strat 16 isn't meant for a one shootout lap in Monaco. That's a huge mistake you're losing there. And Strat 1 doesn't even have the ERS help, so he didn't even have battery when he's running these laps. And he only realized after, and then he's not able to finish his overlap because of the crash and all of those things. So these small mistakes start costing even the third fastest car position on the grid, right? Because if we look at George, his position was specifically in relation to where the car is right now. And then when you look at the race, you do see Lewis doing fastest laps when he's on slicks. You do see him with much performance when he's in the intermediate tires and all of that. So I don't think the car underperformed to a level where they're like, oh my gosh, where did that Barcelona thing come from? It's just that in Monaco, it's not as representative because the cars are much closer. There's not much overtaking to do. There's not a lot of straights for you to see that straight line speed and all of that. And so I don't think you can take a race like a track like Barcelona and say, oh, look, Monaco's showing that no progress was made, because what comparisons are you doing, right? Which straights are you looking at where you're saying, right, here's the big deficit? Because there aren't as much straights in Monaco. Monaco is a bit more technical in terms of we need that downforce package to work, and we can't have it. You just can't cut down the body work, right? You can't have the small wings, spoon wings, and all of that. So I don't think Mercedes massively underperformed in the sense where we need to be so dramatic and think, oh, we're back to square zero. But I probably was expecting them to capitalize a bit more of their position. I know George did. I don't think there was much to ask from him specifically. Where did he finish? P5?
Yeah, P5.
P5, exactly. So Lewis was basically just caught up in mistakes. But if you're only as fast as your second driver, then you have to ask who is the second driver. And if George is the second driver, then Mercedes is in a great position.
Absolutely, and I agree that it's great that they've got two drivers, which it doesn't matter if it's on a Saturday or a Sunday, they can both pull out the goods. And
Yeah.
where probably a lot of people underestimated George, because out of all the kind of I like to call them uni graduates, that whole kind of clique of Albon and
Yeah.
Leclerc
They
and
just
like
coming in
Lando.
from high school.
Exactly, it was always like George that unfortunately was like the ugly duckling. He was like the last one out of the nest to finally get like, a drive in a works team and get that big call, to the manufacturer. And ever since he's come in, I've been one, impressed with obviously the performances on track, but two, just how level-headed and smart he is, especially when it comes to the media, because we know you've got the
Oof,
likes
yeah.
of Brittany Rosberg out there trying to, create like an artificial
How
drama
to
or
bait
trying to
him.
exactly, with
Yeah.
leading questions that, could create frictions between them. And again, he's just kept his head down and he knows his assignment. He knows that ultimately in the future, he'll be the lead driver in that team. And ultimately, you've got an eight, I'm going to say it as always, eight world champion there. And there's so much you could learn. So it's not necessarily about like trying to be the big dog or trying to take control or I'm the captain now. Shout out to Captain Phillips, great movie. But it's about just essentially, just learning your craft and really finalizing everything you need to do. So it's been great for him. And I'm happy with the response that you said as well, Denny, because yeah, it's very easy to kind of look down on things. And I think that when it's always the case that when Lewis, isn't quite at the top or if he's not in first place, everybody's there ready to like try and kick a man down whilst he's on the floor. But I
Yeah.
know his nature. He will just use it as like more fuel to push him to go even harder, to spend even. And I know he's spending an incredible amount of time in the factory, in the simulator as it is, but even more so, he's just hungry. And I just love that's one of many millions of things I could talk about. But this isn't strictly a Lewis Hamilton episode, so maybe we'll have to do that for another episode, Denny. But on to another thing that perhaps ruined Lewis's weekend is hashtag, I'm gonna call it hashtag Alonso Gate, hashtag El Retirement Plan. That man should be in the old people's care home because imagine Marcus Ericsson won an Indy 500 before this guy and his expired sauce could. I couldn't believe what I was watching, Danny. I was like so frustrated when
Yeah.
Lewis was there. The red flag had offered him the opportunity to get the front wing replaced. They were back out there again, and then I don't know if it was Alonso strategically backing Lewis into Ocon because we had learned at that stage, Ocon was going to get the 5 second penalty. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
egotistical thing, because if people know about the history of Formula One, they'll know that when Fernando Alonso was the reigning champion, Lewis Hamilton came in his debut rookie year and wiped the floor with Alonso. So he's always had a chip on his shoulder, and he's always been very passive aggressive in his compliments and his like aura about Lewis. I
Yeah.
don't know, maybe if I was to be completely neutral, if he was just trying to manage his tires, because we know that Pirelli brought the softest compound of tires you could possibly bring for this season's Grand Prix. And in previous seasons, we've seen the leaders like try and go very slowly on medium tires or hard tires just to make sure we get that life. And on top of that, there was some uncertainty as to whether or not they would go the full 77 laps, or it was going to be a timed event capped at 2 hours. So, any
Mhm.
thoughts on just that whole bizarre situation?
I think as a Lewis fan personally, like I wasn't especially when I'm watching the races, I have a few screens up, and one of them is Lewis's onwards. And so when he's like, "What is this man doing? He's going so slow," and Bobby's saying, "Yeah, he was told to kind of do some time management." I'm kind of hearing like, "Hey, okay, good, do some time management at the back of the grid. Let us through." So that's what I'm thinking in the moment. I'm like, and Lewis is thinking of like a second pit stop because they want to jump him and all of that. So you also get frustrated, you also get livid, and you're kind of like, oh, what is he doing? So in the moment, I think I was like, I really hate this man. I need him out of the way. And especially when you compare it to, so, and this is something that I even wanted to touch on when people say, oh, Mercedes is so behind, da 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 da. It's kind of like Georgia was up there, right? And obviously, Monaco isn't the track for you to be overtaking drivers. But look, so is Lewis. Lewis wasn't far behind, and the only reason why maybe they weren't as competitive, and understandably, Monaco isn't the track you overtake, was because he was sitting behind a driver that didn't want to get as close. Do you know what I mean? So personally, I today with like hindsight, maybe a fresher mind, for the circumstances, I would say, okay, he was fine. Alonso was fine to do his tire management. I think he came out in the media and he did say that they had the concerns that the yellow tires, that the medium tires would rain and they wouldn't last the thing, and they also want to get points because I think Alonso has been having a really tough season. And he hasn't been in the points as much as Ocon, for instance. And then he tried to push once he heard that Ocon was in a bad situation with the penalty. But in the moment, I was kind of like, look, we have a race here, and the reason why we're even sitting in in this position is because we want a race. So get your
Sure.
ass, like get your wheels turning, start doing something about it. But I think even Lewis at some point just to gave up, but like not necessarily like he just gave up, but like he also stepped back and was like, you know what, I'm not gonna bother and waste my tires if no one is doing anything about it, because Monaco is just about that. It's just following the train. And when he realized he was just going to be following Alonso, I think he dropped a few seconds, so much that Alonso even clapped back and was like, oh, when I started to push, um Lewis didn't want to push. Well, of course he didn't want to push. What is he going to do when it's only 10 minutes left and you've now started pushing? Do you know what I mean? Like there was still options. There were still times where they could have done something about it when Lewis still had fresh tires. He could have overtaken at some point and do something. I don't know. Just be at the front,
Sure.
closer to Lando and George, and Alonso prevented them from doing that. And so, fair enough, fair game. It's his race. He wants to keep that position, be in the points. We can't really point fingers as much. Sure, we can be upset because as Lewis fans, we kind of want to see our driver do something about it. But at the same time, what we have to ask ourselves this objective question, which is, what could have Lewis done had they been closer to say Lando or George, right?
Mhm.
Was that going to allow him to overtake? Was that going to be just the same situation? If that makes sense, if that's a question even worth asking. But I think it wouldn't have changed much. Maybe coming on top of Alonso would have been ideal, but sitting behind him regardless, I think even if he was going faster, before wouldn't have changed as much because, as we know, it's Monaco, and we saw what happened between him and Esteban. He almost couldn't pass, and he got damaged, and maybe could have even been worse with someone that probably has a vendetta against Lewis. They could have ended up in the wall or something, you know. So yeah, today with a clear mind, I'm just like, okay, whatever, we move on. But in the moment, I was livid. I was shocked that was even happening because gap. It was literally two completely different races. It was the leaders in front, one end of the track, and then Alonso and everyone else at the back. I don't know if you guys saw the little graph that people shared, the tracker of like the drivers on the left side, Paris, Norris, Leclerc, Sainz, Max, and all of them, and then Alonso and everyone else on the right side because he literally held everyone back.
Honestly, like yeah, it's just crazy just to see that almost it was like Formula A and then Formula like Alonso train because it was ridiculous just how much he had backed off. And actually, I know that we got onto Alonso a lot, in the heat of the moment in relation to what he was doing, but
Yeah,
indirectly, I think I actually served a bit of karma because he inadvertently screwed over his teammate Esteban Ocon,
he
like those who saw
did.
it. Because
He did
he backed
because of
Lewis,
yeah.
and then obviously Lewis had nowhere to go, so basically Ocon was catching him, and then
Yeah,
Ocon couldn't really overtake Lewis, and then he was
yeah.
getting caught up by like the likes of what do you call it, Sebastian Vettel and Gasly and those guys towards the rear of the pack as well. So yeah, like I don't know if that was the aim, but if that genuinely is the case that he was trying to do something a bit clever, clearly it didn't really work out for Alpine.
I think
Generally, it only
yeah.
worked out for him.
But I also just think like in general as a racer, I think you're expecting yourself to like be up in a standard that you want to be. You want to race your best, and I don't think that was in his best. And even when you're nursing your tires, I think you can do it in a way that's a competitive, that's a bit in I would be somewhere. Do you know what I mean? And like
Sure.
if he's sitting behind Norris or Russell, he could have gone for something. He could have tried something and then said, "Okay, guys, we didn't manage. Let's do some tire management now." Instead of starting so, because his comments are even stupid to even read back and saying, "Oh, so I managed my tires for the first 10 or 15 laps, and then I started pushing." Well, you're starting to push when everyone's finished the race. Now you're trying to play catch up. Do you know what I mean? Like it makes absolutely no sense. And seeing that as someone that wants to see people race is kind of like one, you're not being a team player because you screwed over your teammate that has a 5 second penalty and can't overtake Hamilton. Two, you're like not you're doing a service as a racer. Maybe you don't care, but it would have been nice to see you at least try get that P6 or that P5, and you didn't even bother to do that. So Mm, I don't know. Second time world champion. Maybe you want to go back to IndyCar or something. If you don't want to be
Maybe not
racing
now, Denny,
again.
because Ericsson's just won an Indy 500 before he could, which is just wow. The same Ericsson hit us. Ericsson managed to actually win an Indy 500 before Alonso. So now I know whatever it is, that triple crown's always going to be a bit tainted for Alonso. Put it that way. But I also wanted to get into someone else's pain because I feel it deeply for Charles Leclerc. I thought that
Oof.
maybe Nicky Lauda would be in the sky and perhaps banging some judge on him for crashing his Ferrari, his classic Ferrari, I think
That was so
312
sad. That
at the
was so
Monaco like historic event a couple of weeks
sad.
ago. But yeah, just again, Ferrari just imploding in great effect because
Oh,
they had it covered, Denny. I mean, if we think about it, they rock up to the circuit. They seem relatively competitive throughout all the practice sessions. Then obviously you have qualifying. Ferraris seem to be at least 2, 3 temps faster than both Max and Perez. In fact, I actually think that Perez was the better driver of the two Red Bulls this weekend. He really seemed to
yeah.
react to the previous events, which we'll touch on in a bit. But again, everything's going swimmingly for Charles Leclerc. And what I wanted to ask you, Denny, was does he have a right to be angry with Ferrari over the pit stop strategy error or blunder or you could say less optimal call they made? Or if you flip the bottle and you look at it maybe from a different view, does Carlos Sainz maybe deserve more credit for going against the team and using more initiative? Because Ferrari, if people remember, actually wanted both Leclerc and Sainz to pit for Inters. And actually, it was Sainz. I'm pretty sure he was looking at Lewis Hamilton's race in 2016. He was like, the track's going to
Yeah.
dry. There's no more rain. I could easily save myself a pit stop if I just manage my wet tires and just come in for dries, which it almost worked, but it didn't. But because they did that, it then meant that basically Charles pitted, Sainz stayed out. Everybody that went to intermediates was catching Sainz, meaning that
Yeah.
he was still ahead of Leclerc. And
Yeah.
then when Ferrari pulled the trigger, it essentially meant they had to double stack, which then put Leclerc, which was leading the race and hadn't put a foot wrong up until that stage, kind of on the back foot. So, what's your assessment of that? And have Ferrari got it wrong this week?
I think you can do both. I think you can accept that Charles can be upset and praise Carlos for what he did. There is a very fine. I think we need to start maybe asking ourselves the question: Is are Ferrari really fit to be at the front when it comes to calling for strategies? Because it's today we're able to see a bit more in a clear view because they're at the front, because it's Leclerc that's leading, because they have they had the championship in their hands with the strongest car, the fastest car out the bat. They didn't have to do many upgrades in there. But Ferrari has been doing, like, they've been bottling strategies for a while now. People have been losing, like Leclerc last year lost his position to Sainz because of bad strategy calls from Ferrari. If you argue with any Charles fan, you're like, oh, Charles is underperforming, they would put the blame on Ferrari. So they have been struggling with strategy calls for a while now. It's not just now that we're only seeing them because now they're in the spotlight. But I think Charles has all the right to be upset at that strategy call. Because essentially they lost the race twice for Leclerc. It wasn't just that one instance. It was first, they were first too slow in responding to Perez's pit stop because Perez started very early, I think lap 16, if I'm not mistaken. And so they should have reacted right after, because those inters, Gasly had shown that those inters were walking really, really fast. He was overtaking everyone else. And so once you see that data, because also the cars don't have the data, right? Charles doesn't have data. And I think there needs to be that mutual understanding between the teams, that even though he understands what's going on with the car in the moment and he's feeling the tires and all of that, he can't see what's going on behind him or in front of him. So you need to help as a team. And so seeing Gasly overtaking everyone and the interns working really well, they should have said, hey, come in right now, like either the same lap or a lap earlier, and say, hey, let's do this change. And that's when they first lost it, because that their pit stop was lap 18. So 2 laps later was absolutely, it was just not ideal. It would have, it didn't work, right? And then the double stacking also, um oh, right. So when they did the pit stop, when they realized they did the pit stop late, what they should have done was leave Charles out. So they lost it in those two instances. One, they didn't react to Perez in the right time. Two, they put him on interns, right? Because those interns didn't even last 3 laps, because I think that he pitted like lap 18, and then lap 20 he was already doing his in lap. And that's when they realized, okay, let's double stack. Oh, no, 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 let's not double stack, right? In, out, 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 out. So what are you doing? Right? Like,
Yeah.
even listening to myself saying that, I'm also thinking, what are you doing? Do you not have the data? What are you trying to tell me? And that double stack, obviously, Sainz in lap was absolutely horrendous. He was so slow. You could see in the video that he's waiting, Charles is waiting a few seconds there. And so those two instances were very poor judgments from Ferrari as a team, and from a team that is trying to get the championship back, and from a team that has a driver that finally gets to start the race, has the pole, has the car, and you bottled it. You didn't do it right. You didn't do the right call for your driver. You didn't do him any justice. And now he's not just in second or third, he's out of the podium. He's out of that contention for any possible grasp in of his own championship. So I think Charles, Um, has all the right to be upset at that. He deserved a bit better attention because he was the one who was meant to win that race. He had the pace, he had the car. But also, we can definitely clap for Signs for being like, hey, here's what we're gonna do, right? Which at the end worked for him. If it wasn't for Latifi holding him up, but I think we should definitely clap for Signs for being these tires are going to be finished, but we can definitely wait a bit longer because nothing's going to happen. In Monaco, we know how it is. Because we saw Verstappen stopped for interns, but didn't have any advantage on signs from lap 18 to lap 21. So he did preempt that decision being the right one, and we could definitely clap for. We should clap for him actually, and I feel like if it wasn't for that little bug, which we should get into, of Latifi being in front of him as a back marker, I feel like he could have tried to do something with Perez in front and maybe get the win for Ferrari this weekend.
So true. And you know what? I have to give Science some credit on the back of the wonderful things you're just saying there as well, Denny, because he's had a rough start, hasn't he? I mean, he's
Yeah.
finally in a car that could win a championship. It's competitive, and he really does seem to take a bit longer to adjust to this new Ferrari, to be able to string the performances. And even if it's a case of not being Leclerc, then the best thing you could then do is finish second, which,
Yeah.
a lot of the times he's just been shy of, or, he had that really erratic qualifying on Australia where he didn't qualify well, then threw it off the road in the first couple of laps. And he's been here or there, but, to take the initiative and to take things into his own hand, I think was very Schumacher-esque when you're talking about Ferrari and the
Yeah.
history of just like bottling things. And just to round that particular discussion point up as well, Denny, do you think it will change at Ferrari? Do you think it has to change? Because ultimately, this is probably the best shot at a title they've had in years. But yet, it does seems to happen over and over again. And I know we referenced the Leclerc kind of in and in, out moment on the race,
Yeah.
but it even happened during free practice because I mean, there's a situation where I think it was Mick that broke down in the pits, so somebody was blocking the pit lane entry, so they red flagged the session, and essentially they themselves didn't know whether or not you could basically bring a
Yeah, he
car
had a
into the pits.
question. Yeah, he was like, question. So what do I do here? Like, what?
He's like, stay out,
No, no, no.
no, come
Yeah,
in.
he's like, no, listen to me. I think he's also getting fed up because I heard the radio. He's like, listen to me, listen to me. There's a X here. They're not letting me in. Like, okay, stay out then. No, yeah, but I think that was like that was a different circumstance. I don't think they've ever been in that situation. Well, maybe not ever, but like not
Sure.
in recent years at least, where they there's both a red flag and the pit lane close. I think that we need to cut them some slack in there. But yeah, I think when you look at Ferrari, when you look at a team that has such a strong car, because think about the pace the Ferrari has. No car should be able to touch them and be a threat to them, especially not in Monaco, where all you need is a track position. You pit once in Monaco and you're good to go. Your tires are going to be alive. And well, we had a little rain, but that was still not as much of a hiccup for you to make such huge mistakes with a win. So when you have a car like that, you need to capitalize off it. You need to run away with the championship. I know if Lewis had a car like that, you wouldn't see him. Like you wouldn't even be thinking about contending for a championship if that car was in the hands of Mercedes. And so I think Ferrari needs to do some introspection, sit down and be like, hey, how are we going to do things from here? Because this championship is running and Max is ruthless. He does not care. And Red Bull don't care as well. We saw in Spain the calls that they made when Checo was clearly ahead at some point. They were like, hey, no, we want Max to win because we need these points. And maybe that is the mentality that Ferrari needs to start getting as well, to be a bit more ruthless and be like, our driver is slowly losing the lead, and at some point he won't be able to regain any of that ground that we're messing up here. So how can we start being a bit more proactive and less snooze? Oh my gosh, come in. Oh my gosh, no. Because you can't afford to do that, right? You can't afford to be missing on these things when the other team is capitalizing every single time you miss out because they're there to pick up your pieces. So I think they need to have a conversation. They shouldn't even have a week off. They should go straight into the brief and be like, okay, how do we do this? Because even looking at signs, I think it's still very risky that you try. I think there needs to be a balance between driver knows how they feeling and you go, okay, but we have the data and we want to tell you this is because look at Lando, for instance, and the infamous race that no one is going to let him forget. When he didn't pit for engines, he made the call, right? So essentially he did the same thing as Sainz, but the team knew something he didn't know, right? He's just focused, I want to win, I want to win, I'm holding everyone back, this is my first win. He's hungry, power hungry, he wants to be at the front. And it's always going to be the same thing with every driver, but there needs to be an objective mind that comes in and says, hey, I know your tires are feeling fine, but we need you in the box now. Otherwise, you lose positions. Otherwise, this happens, or otherwise, you're not going to be able to regain that position, blah, 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 blah. So I think that is the one thing Ferrari needs to assess thoroughly, which is we understand that the car is able to do whatever you want it to do. But when we look at data, we are certain that in this lap you need to come in. We are certain that in that lap you need to go in. And that is the one thing for me that misses out a lot. And Charles seems to be the unlucky guy because nothing else is going wrong with Charles. He drives it well. He's adapted to the car well. He has the racecraft. I mean, we saw him basically school Verstappen at some point in the earlier races. So he has everything. He just needs that team that is certain of what they're saying and the calls they're making and saying, hey, okay, we missed one opportunity. We can't miss the second one, right? Why are we double stacking someone and making him lose two positions? Do you know what I mean? So I think that ascertains for from the team is what they're missing because they have the driver of that. It's a Charles is the future world champion. Let me tell you that he has the caliber, he has the racecraft, he has the confidence, but he can't. It's not a one man show.
Sure.
And it's one thing I say a lot. F1 is not a one man show because you don't put the drivers in the car and just let them go vroom vroom for 70 laps. They need you as much as you need them. And you, I mean the team. And so I think they need to assess, hey, how can we learn from these mistakes? And I think it's maybe a little too late because they should have started doing that last year when they started messing up all these strategies, even when they were at the back, right? So there needs to be a serious conversation in the Ferrari powerhouse. Otherwise, you're not going to get a championship fight.
I agree, and it's a strange one with Ferrari because usually they're quite ruthless, and we've seen like definitely in like the 2010 era that they were very ruthless. We saw many different race directors there. We saw many different, like chairmans and CEOs and whatnot at Ferrari too. It really is business there, and for them to kind of have it in their hands like you've mentioned, and for them still to not get it 100% right, there's no excuse, and there's nothing for them to really fall behind when they've had these extra years to kind of get everything right. With this new regulation of car, they obviously took a step back with the 2019 engine infringement, where they were told that
Yeah.
they had to stop what they were doing. But they've had time since then to even perfect that, whilst they've not been in a championship fight which has been as intense as Red Bull or even Mercedes. So there wouldn't be an excuse. And I think if they don't win the championship this year, that would be inexcusable for them. So definitely one to watch. But Denny, it's like you're a fortune teller, It's like you know the guess. I'm afraid that you can see what's on my computer because you can foreshadow what I was actually gonna ask next, which is also Mr. Senior Perez. And this guy, Denny, I can't lie, I'm getting jiggy with this guy's story because Red Bull clearly don't see him as the number one. They see him
Yeah.
as the side piece. They see him as
Yeah.
the coleslaw. They see him as like the gravy. They see him just, as just ancillary. And my
Yeah.
guy said, you know what? You want to disrespect me, Big Sergio El Chapo Perez? Mad. Now
Let me
hold this.
crash into Q3.
Exactly. Let me, you know what? Let me live my own movie. And personally, even from the outside looking in, I love it because at this point, he's gonna give Red Bull some issues. My personal thing is I think that the kind of pushback, the kind of like side kind of tactics from Horner, Helmet, and the rest of them at Red Bull, where they're saying, well, we're going to give the drivers equal opportunities, but they're not really equal opportunities.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you do well, that's great. But yet they always give Max the better upgrades, the
Yeah.
better race strategy and whatnot as well. It's so good to actually see Perez still just stick it on them, man. And he's here. I think he's here. I don't think he's going anywhere. Whether or not I think he has it in him to actually go the entire season remains to be unseen. But again, just Denny, the question I wanted to put forward to you is: do you feel he has what it takes to put forward a championship fight towards Max for the season? And what do you preempt Red Bull are going to do in this situation if his incredible form continues to go into the next couple of races?
Um, Here's the thing. Again, Formula One is not a one-man show. Perez needs his team just as much. And so I don't think Perez has a chance of even being in contention of anything so long as Max has just as fast car. First is let's touch on what exactly you said. Max always gets the car. It's always going to be okay. Adrian Newey found a very imaginative way of saving weight. And now we have, I don't know, NASA engineering and stuff like that. It's going to go to Max, right? He's going to be the one to test. He's going to be the one to probably win a race in it. He's going to be the one who's going to get it for 2-3 races straight before Perez even thinks about getting it. And so they stop Perez at some point from doing basically anything when they say we are going to put all our eggs on Max's basket. And they've made it very clear, and I think it's something that Perez himself understands, that he might get a few wins, but is he going to fight for the championship? Probably not. Verstappen's early, their point difference isn't big. It's not huge. And even if you look at Spain, for instance, if Verstappen's not able to pass, why aren't you letting Sergio pass? Do you not want to maximize points for your team if you have a driver on fresher tires? You didn't do that, right? They didn't do that. And so I think that was a testament. And I think there is something fundamentally wrong, but it was a testament to them for us, from them to us, or from them to Perez or to Max, whoever it was, that they do have a favorite driver. They do have someone they want to win, and that someone is not Perez. And I don't think we will see him in championship contention so long as they can give Max a good car. Monaco was an outlier because Perez was great on the car. It wasn't just because Max wasn't there in front and he couldn't overtake or any of that sort. Perez was great the whole weekend, from FP1 all the way through qualifying, all the way through the race. And he capitalized off of that. And I think Max just had the wrong foot in with the car this weekend. But best believe if Max by any chance managed to overtake Sainz and was behind Perez, they would have called team orders. It was only a matter of time until they said something like, "Oh, Perez, your tire is boxed once again," or something, or came up with something in there. But if at any point Max found himself behind Checo, they would have told him to move aside and would have given that win to Max. And I have no doubt that this is what we're going to be seeing for the rest of the season, because Red Bull doesn't have two drivers that they believe will win championships. They have one, and the other one is just a driver that is finally keeping up to par to Max, because it is all they've wanted, right? Since they
Sure.
started nurturing and nursing Max and saying this is the great white hope, this is the world champion that the world needs, this is the one who's going to defeat Lewis Hamilton. And sure enough, Max is talented. I don't think Max is going to be gone anytime soon, and maybe that is to Perez's detriment, because if he continues to be this strong and this fast and this driven, they will make way for Max to win. And so since they started nursing Max that way at Red Bull, all they wanted was a second driver to fit the car and bring points home. That's all they wanted. They don't care if this driver is mad, upset, throwing fits or anything. Da, 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 da. They don't care if they're championship caliber or not. As long as you can match Max in a sense where Max is finishing one, you're finishing second or third, we're great. We're good to go. And this is why we saw all of those musical chairs with Albon and Gasly during that time where they were a bit rocky because they want someone that can just match their champion. They don't want another champion. They don't need another champion because they know they can do anything they want with that one car and get Max to win. But they, unfortunately for them, it's a two-man race as well. They need a second driver. And for them is as long as we can get like a pawn that can move the car really fast, we're good to go. And I think that's what Red Bull second drivers need to understand is, hey, as long as Max is in good form, as long as Max is able to capitalize, they will prioritize Max. And I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Exactly. And, it's poignant because I really like Perez. He's the good guy, I think, in a very bad
Yeah.
bunch of people at Red Bull,
Yeah.
and like just how much you could see every time how much it means to him, probably the things he's seen in life. And even when he's on the podium, I think he shed a tear because it's like
Yeah.
people are telling him you can't do it, or and it's not that he can't do it, it's just that he's not needed to do it, like you mentioned,
Mhm.
because they already have Max. But
Exactly.
just the mere fact that you could have a good weekend and like show Red Bull, look, I'm here, I can do it. I'm one of the good guys too. Don't forget
Yeah.
about me.
And
And
he's
just
been doing it since. Like this, these aren't his first wins. He's been doing it since he was in Racing Point, and he's been capitalizing. And we know when Perez has a good weekend, he has a really good weekend, right? And so there's no let them race philosophy at Red Bull. It's let Max win philosophy. And when
yeah,
Max can't, we want you to. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's what hinders, that's what stops that development for a driver is great. You have the car, but what can you do with the car? There is a ceiling, there's a cap performance there that they stop and they're like, sorry, we want the other one to pass. So can you're not in the strategy anyway. So make way, please, So, and also you listen to the frustration of him going, hey guys, I have fresh tires, please let me pass. Why aren't you letting me pass? Why can't he just make way? And sometimes you can even pretend like if it wouldn't have changed anything if you had put Perez passing, try to pass George, because at the end of the day he wasn't in the winning strategy. Max would have pitted again, he would have been on fresher tires. But
mhm,
at least you gave your driver a chance. Do you know? At
that's
least you
exactly it.
yeah, at least in those 2 seconds where the DRS wasn't working and Max couldn't pass, Georgia could have said, "Yeah, Max, make way, let Perez go for it." At least when you give candy to a baby, it's not even open. You just give it, you making them stop crying just because
Yeah,
they're throwing a fuss. You could have just done that. You could have just pretended that at least you care. Here, have your 2 seconds of shine. Try to pass George, and then Max comes and overtakes you. I think Perez would have been a bit more satisfied with the opportunity that he was granted by the team versus not letting him pass when he had fresh tires and then saying, "Oh, give way because you are not in the winning strategy." Because he himself said it wasn't fair, but okay, there's nothing we can do, right? And so you have to feel for him because he's an outstanding driver. I think he will still show us a lot. Like right now, fun fact, he's the most successful Mexican driver in Formula One.
way.
Yeah, so that's amazing for him, and I think from here on forwards, anything that he wins is one more record, one more record, one more record, and it's amazing to see him thrive. It's great. I think he might sign a new deal with Red Bull. I think I saw something like that after this race, which is amazing for him. But it's just unfortunate that he's also next to a machine that is Max Verstappen.
Absolutely. And listen, guys, like, whilst I think, like Denny said, it's a bit unfortunate that he's just capped by the scenario. I'm here for it. If he wants to beat that flipping fake golden boots, flipping 2 carat boots, Wembley Market boots, like
Yeah,
fish lips looking Max Verstappen kid, and give
Lewis
Red Bull a
Hamilton
headache.
2016 era, villain era. If Max if Max wants to overtake me, come get me because I'm not slowing down for no Max.
Exactly. Like, I'm here for it, honestly. And I commend Perez for his braveness. And like we said, like, maybe it won't result in him winning a championship, but again, if he can just give Red Bull more than enough to think about and just keep his head in the window, I think that he's going to be undeniable in certain races that we have coming up. So definitely. Well, to move on to another driver, Denny. See, I didn't want this day to come, Denny, but I think I might have to smoke a Mick Schumacher pack today because what is he doing? What is he doing? Like, come on, my guy. Like, this is the
Oh,
seventh race of the season. This is the second season he's had in Formula One, second season merchant. Because everyone likes to say, oh, well, he does better in the second season. He's a bit of a slow learner, but because he's Michael Schumacher's son, I'll give him. Nah, man's not having that anymore. I'm done. I'm finished. His source expired. We need to talk
the
about
sauce
Denny.
expired.
His
No,
source expired.
he's not doing it. He's not cutting it. He's not meeting expectations. And I think the one thing that has needed was the driver to show that the car works. Maybe Mazepin just wasn't doing enough because Kevin got in that car after being out of Formula One. Yeah, he started showing it. He started bringing it, and you're not seeing Kevin cut slack. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's up there. He's in front when he's able to qualify in front. He's able to qualify in front and hold his position. And maybe Spain was unfortunate. I'm glad my driver was able to recover. Spain was unfortunate, but it's not like he wasn't a bad route, you know. And so now people are starting to see, okay, maybe Mick was only doing good because the one he had to beat was ass shit. Right? And now that you have someone of some strength, some good caliber and some racecraft, now you're seeing that maybe not every son of a fish can swim as well. Maybe some drown and die. Maybe some don't make it to shore or something. And yeah, ooh, the sauce expired. I don't even know
Because
what to say.
no, but it's true, Denny, man. Like the guy is just like, yo, like it's not that hard. It's not. It's really if you're not gonna score points, at least give me a
Finish.
finish. Give me something. Like Denzel Washington said, we're leaving here with something. This guy don't leave with nothing. If I
Yeah.
told Mick Schumacher to go and rob somebody's house, he'd leave there with no points. This
And what
guy.
was that? I don't even remember who he did it with. Was it Albon? I think that he just like passed them and hit them or something like that. Like, what are you doing? And I think I saw it
Exactly.
on Twitter. People were like, "Hey, he didn't even. He pretended like this guy wasn't there." And everyone's like, "Oh, okay, now Mick's on fraud watch now." I mean, as he should be, because what were you expecting? Talking about, oh, Carlos Sainz just a seat warmer. Seat warmer for who? For this man that's not even finishing the races? Come on, like, let's be serious. Let's get a bit serious.
And that's the thing, Denny. Like this guy, if he can just do an average job, because this is the thing. Like Ferrari could want a situation like Red Bull, where they have one amazing driver like Leclerc, and then
Yeah.
this one subpar driver that does enough. But this guy, like, he's not making no good case. If I had to defend this guy in court, I have no case. The case would be dismissed before
Yeah.
I even get to the courtroom
Yeah.
because
No.
this guy is just guilty. Man's on fraud watch, like you said. Like he needs to
Yeah.
do better, man. Come on, how are you the only other driver on the grid besides Latifi, the other fraud I'm gonna cook later today as well? How are
And what
you the
is even
only guy? Doesn't
happening? Like, what does he even, I don't even see him in press conferences enough to know what he says. What is he blaming this on? Is the car drivable? You can't really say that, can you?
and
Because
Magnussen's
he's
doing it.
exactly. And this is why, like, I feel like everything for me just rounds goes back to Lewis because everyone's so quick to say, oh, George is finishing top five. Why isn't Lewis? Well, look at other drivers as well, right? Why isn't Mick getting the same criticism? Because Magnussen's finishing, he's getting points. Why is your other driver crashing? Right? Let's talk about that. Let's start these conversations. Why is the supposedly Ferrari guy that's supposed to go to Ferrari now not even able to drive a Haas? You think he's going to be able to handle a Ferrari? Come on now, like, let's get serious. Don't joke, you know. And these are the conversations that people don't have with other drivers, but are so quick to judge when it's like, oh, Lewis Hamilton, because you want to just tore him down, tore him apart, and not give him his credit as a seven-time world champion or eight-time world champion, as you would say. And so, yeah, he's Mick's just not cutting it. He's just not doing it, and maybe leave him out sometime soon. Count him out.
Denny is looking funny in the light. I'm telling you, he's looking funny in the light because, like you said, and people who talk about Lewis, they don't have no business putting Lewis in their mouths because at least Lewis has achieved stuff in Formula One. At least Lewis is the
Exactly.
greatest driver of all time. At least Lewis has done things for the sport and no one else sees it to do even today. But Mick now, my guy's just living off his dad's last name. And it burns me, Denny. It really hurts because the guy, you see, with Mazepin, it's easy to slam him because he wasn't a good guy anyway, and he's very arrogant,
Yeah.
and you could see
Yeah.
that rich kind of daddy's boy mentality. Mick doesn't strike me as that. He seems as somebody that's willing to take
Tough
stuff forward
puppy.
and move
Yeah.
forward. But nah, I can't look at the blonde hair and the green eyes. I'm not Hitler. Man's not here
The
to look at that.
life.
Man can't just look at that. Man have to get results from me too, and he's not cutting it. And the next one, Denny, I might as well actually make a second spliff for this guy too, when I smoke him as well. That honey badger turned retired kangaroo.
Oh, let's have that conversation. What is going on, Daniel Ricardo? What is going on? No, 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 no. Because what really upsets me is not even Daniel himself, is the way people are reacting to him not meeting expectations. Daniel Ricardo is not your average rookie. Like, granted, we just said Mick is his second season. This man has been in F1 for what, a decade? He's won races in harder cars to drive. Those Red Bulls are no easy machines. That man's been driving Monaco like crazy, winning and being on podiums year after year after year. Why can't you find grip with a McLaren? Why is a guy that's not even 100%, that's sick, tonsillitis, whatever Norris has come down with, why is he smoking you? Why can't you this is a new car, right? You were part of development. Why can't you find grips with it? Or he wasn't part of testing. Okay, it's been 6 races, 7 races. At some point you've done enough practice for you to know your car. Do you know what I mean? And he's getting paid loads of money. He has a really, really, really fat contract with McLaren. Of course, sponsors are going to start asking questions. Of course, team principal is going to start asking questions. Of course, CEO is going to start asking questions. And people are just finding excuse after excuse for Daniel Ricciardo. Stop doing that.
Mm.
Stop doing that, because we need to start having this conversation. He's not meeting expectations. And the expectation was McLaren was going to come back up and have a leader. Daniel Ricciardo was going to be that leader, right? Right? Because Norris is still, granted, he's been in a while, he's learned a lot from Carlos Sainz, but he's no race winner. He doesn't have a win to his name. He has a few podiums, yeah, but he's still very young. And McLaren coming back, they want to have someone that's going to lead development. Turns out Norris is being that guy for them. Of course, they're going to start talking. Of course, interviews aren't going to be all positive, all glitz and glam, and oh my gosh, Ricardo, we love him so much. At some point, they're going to start criticizing and saying it's not easy. Daniel's not comfortable with the car, because that's all true. And I don't understand why people are getting so defensive and saying, oh, this team doesn't care for him, blah, 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 blah. It's all in his hands. It's not like he's doing great with the car and everyone's just slagging him off. No, they're rightfully saying this man is not delivering. He's been out the points for 90% of the races, or 80% of the races that we've had so far. That is no race winner attitude at all. What is it so hard to come to terms with the car? Why aren't you coming to terms with the car?
This is exactly it, Denny. And I mean, it's like Marvin Gaye said, "What's going on?" That's a great song, by the way. But
I know.
honestly, what is going on with this guy? Because you hit the nail on the head with everything you just said there, Denny. Like, he gets a blind, whilst other drivers, any kind of slip up, whether it's Sonoda, whether it's Lewis, people are ready with the pitchforks and whatnot. But when it comes to
Yeah.
Daniel now, my guy gets a blind week in, week out, and it's just not on. It's not on at all. And Denny, he's in a lot of trouble because where does he go from here? Because he's definitely, as long as Helmut Marko's alive today, he's never going back to Red Bull. You can write that off completely. Ferrari have no business taking him, because if they were going to take him, they would have taken him when he was like, like basically putting himself
Splash
forward,
around.
but they
Yeah.
decided to go for science. So that
Yeah.
wasn't an option either. Then obviously you had obviously Mercedes, and again, why would Mercedes take, like Ricardo when they could be more ambitious and they could go for a driver like Lando? They could go. I mean, again, I think Sebastian
Yeah.
Vettel's past his best years, but even to me, that actually might be a better shout than Ricardo. At least Sebastian is trying something. At least Sebastian's getting points here or there.
Yeah.
At least Sebastian's being his teammate on most weekends. Like, where does he go? Because he's not going to get another seat at the top. I
Nope.
think as much as Zach Brown wants to love him, wants to think, even he's under pressure because McLaren, with all due respect to them, the sponsorship's been a bit kind of dry recently. They've needed to get back in, from a lot of different places. They've had to diversify, their whole
Yeah.
stable and try to hand the IndyCar because the Formula One thing wasn't really working out so much, and the extreme E, like the extreme E kind of like sports as well and stuff like that too. So this guy needs to get a grip. And from time Lando Norris, tonsillitis, and them things there.
Man
Jeez,
is shivering, not sleeping, not getting enough sleep, and he's out here P6, P6
exactly.
in Monaco.
Dusted
Come on,
Ricardo, dusted
come
him.
on. Was he
I
even on
mean,
the points?
nah, I finished P13 this race, and that bear
Again,
in mind,
no,
bear in
because
mind,
he's been finishing P13 specifically for like the past 3 races, like literally P13, 1-3 every race. I think this is like worth like I think every podcast owner needs to have one specific episode dedicated, and the title should be "Is Daniel Ricciardo finished? Yes or no?" Discuss that because he at this point, what else? Because I think he was given the benefit of the doubt last year. Oh, the
Mm,
McLaren. So I think personally, I was also the one who was like, "Oh, the McLaren's so hard to adapt to. We need to give him time. Let's give him a bit of half of a season." Da 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 da. And then we gave him that, and Monza came. And was like, "Oh, I never left." Blah 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 blah. And we're all hyped. We're like, "Yeah, he's back. The honey badger. Let's go. He's gonna show how he is. He's gonna help the team develop." And he left again. He disappeared. We didn't hear from him since.
honestly, like
And
a vanishing act.
you start asking yourself, like, and be a bit more objective. And I understand his fans, like, I probably wouldn't be the first one to say, "Oh, Lewis Hamilton's finished. So thank God my driver has 7-time world champions." But I wouldn't be the first one to admit and be like, "Hey, Lewis Hamilton is finished. Maybe he just doesn't have the source anymore." So I understand and I feel for his fans who stand by him still, but you need to be objective as well. And I think this is something I try to do personally as FIA girly. Put feelings aside, sit down and say, let's analyze the races, right? We understand the first few races, Bahrain, both drivers finished P13, 14, something like that, because there was still brake issues. They still didn't have their parts in. The car wasn't producing as much downforce. Da 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 da. But then Norris started performing, right? And you both took part in development of this car. What do you start then claiming that, right? And then, oh, but Daniel doesn't have as much grip as everyone else. Whose fault is that? That is not a building the car thing. That is his setup to work on. That is his car to have a feel for. So if he's coming out and saying, "Oh, I don't know what happened. I just didn't have grip," who's supposed to know? Right? Because when Nora's sitting down in his debrief and saying, "Yeah, well, this happened, that happened, and we just didn't have grip because of this and XYZ, and the rear wasn't working, blah, 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 blah," he's also helping his team understand his car a little bit better. He's also helping himself with setup because now he knows in previous race this didn't happen. Now let's change this, let's do that, let's try something else. But if Ricardo's coming out and saying, uh, I don't know, who's meant to know then? He's going to sit in your car and set it up. So these are the little conversations that people need to start having is this team wants to be best of the rest. They have everything to be best of the rest. They have the lineup to be best of the rest. Ricardo has the caliber to be fighting with Perez, to be fighting with Sainz, to be fighting with just at the front, and leave Lando to eat up George and whoever else is in those cars from the Twitch squad and all these people, I forget their names, so they have a good team to tag team everyone else to be fighting in there and trying to get those podiums and trying to be P5, P6 or P7, P8 but he's just nowhere to be seen. He's not even capitalizing 1 point, not even a P10. Come on, let's get serious.
It's embarrassing, Denny. Honestly, he's looking like a rat on the highway, you know. This guy and his helmet. Let me, and again, I'm not done either. This guy, his helmet suck as well. What kind of helmet design is that? It looked like a 3-year-old vomited over his helmet. Wagwan for my guy. Honestly, like, it's like he's just there for the vibes. Is it like this guy must be like the Australian vibes cartel because that's what he
He is
does.
very vibey indeed. He is
This,
very vibey indeed, but the
this
vibes
is
are
it.
leaving him.
Like
The
you
vibes.
mentioned, like Lando's probably there, like, yeah, this could be better. We can adjust the brake bias here. You know, the car's
Mm-hmm.
porpoising on this corner. Let's reduce some of the
Mm-hmm.
downforce on this thing. Daniel's just there, like bopping his head like one bobblehead or something. And he needs to watch himself, Denny, because again, like. There's not hungry people on the grid, Denny. We know that we got Gasly looking to free
Oh,
himself
for
from the
sure.
Red Bull stable, looking to get
Yeah.
a transfer. And on top of that, even if you look across the pond, you got the likes of Pato O'Ward in the McLaren family doing quite well. You've got
Yeah.
Carlton Herta, a driver that's in the Andretti stable, and because Andretti can't get an entry into Formula One at the moment,
Piastri.
you know, Piastri as well. Yeah, planting
Yeah.
Piastri, young
Yeah.
Piastri, just on the wings, waiting for opportunity, and then you just got this sophisticated kangaroo just there. Like I don't understand, honestly. So yeah, he really needs.
McLaren is starting to ask questions, and they're asking the right questions. Is this fish fit to be in our pond when we want to be winning races? Probably not, because Lando is carrying that team right
He
now.
really is.
He's carrying the team, and you can't have a Formula One team with just one driver. Otherwise, what are we paying you 10 million for? Where's that money going? You just chilling, traveling, going to LA with our money. Come back, come develop the car, come do something. So questions need to be asked, and I think Daniel's clock is ticking. If McLaren doesn't give him up, I think he will be the one who's going to be like, "Hey, I think it's time for me to go do something else. Maybe do some music or some merch or something." But it's
I
just
wouldn't even
not.
buy the merch because his helmet's trash.
His merch kind of good. I think it's just very expensive, but it's kind of cool.
Man, I'm not paying for that. And my guy's like bombing P13s week in, week out. Nah, man,
Exactly,
laters.
exactly.
Oh, no, but it was good that we did that. And I'm glad we did it in a light-hearted way too. Because I know that there's a lot of Daniel Ricciardo fans. Please
Oh,
leave me alone and don't send me any death threats after this podcast. I come in peace. But yeah, we say this thing not from like a place of putting Daniel down. It's because we know he can do better. We've seen him
yeah.
do better. And right now he's stinking up the place, and it's just not on. And you know, if you want to grill Lewis, cool, but reserve the same energy for other people too,
For other
because at least Lewis
drivers,
has credit in the bank. At least Lewis
yeah.
has a legacy.
Credit in the
Daniel
bank,
Ricciardo-
yeah. For a few years, he can bottle one. It's fine. That's okay. But also,
exactly.
like, these drivers aren't babies. I think fans need to stop babying people as if they're coming out and going into the debrief and asking for milk and cookies. They need to hear the truth, you know what I mean? They need to be told exactly what it is. And Zach Brown was so polite when he said, hey, he's just not comfortable with the car yet. He used the word yet. What else do you want as his
Mm.
fan? He's still giving him a room to breathe. He's still saying, we're still working with him. We're still try to find performance, da 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 da. But as he said, you want both drivers to be up there. You want them to be close. You want them to be battling each other. And right now, they only have Lando, and it does 100% show how much of a good driver Lando is. Obviously, it's fine. He can be annoying and a prick and all of that and disrespectful sometimes, but he is a great driver. And he's showing exactly that every time he gets in that car and he maximizes that car. He's showing that, hey, if McLaren at some point gets a car that's as fast as a Ferrari or a Red Bull, I'm going to be the one bringing wins for this team. And now it makes the team want to maybe invest more in Lando and little bit less on Daniel, or look for someone else somewhere else that is up to par with Lando and is able to do that. And is the question that we asked for Mick again: if your other driver is able to do it, why isn't Ricciardo? Why isn't he up there? Why isn't he performing the same way? I mean, I would understand at least a P8, a
Mm.
P10. I would say, okay, cool, yeah. 13? get serious. That's
Nah, honestly,
your
Denny, like it's mad. It's real mad right now. And again, I wouldn't be surprised at all if you see a young Pierre Gasly there next year because
yeah.
you can tell that it's starting to annoy the team, like, and it's not gonna be the likes of Andrea Seidel that's gonna say it, but at the same time, you could just see that even just the engineer, times when the engineer saying, "How's the car?" Like they're done mentally. They've checked out with this guy because he's not
Oh, that
bringing
was
anything
so
to the
sad.
team.
No, that was
It was
sad.
harsh.
I was
It was
really
harsh.
sad.
I think
I
at
was,
the time it was like,
yeah.
oh, like, you couldn't at least check my guy was okay. But again, Denny, it's just like I understand it too. Like, yo, we don't have time to waste. We've not been performing. We haven't tasted like champagne on the top
Yeah.
step
Yeah.
consistently since we had
It's like
Sir
you're
Lewis
finishing
Hamilton.
P13 and you still crashing, dude. Like, come on, get a career. It's the same thing with
Exactly.
Nick. Like, at least finish the race. At least give us something. But yeah, that was unfortunate. I think he was out of context. I think they didn't see that he had crashed. They just saw the car disappear or something like that. But it was when I heard it, I was like, whoa, 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 wait. I know we don't like him as much anymore, but come on, now that was a
Yeah.
bad crash. Let's be a bit sensitive, you know.
True. True. There's always a place for decency, and I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think my initial thing was that too. But then I was like, you know what? Nah, this guy maybe he needs a bit of tough love. Maybe he needs to go back to the school of Dr. Helmut Marko and just get some of that stiff treatment because he needs to do better, and he's not, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
And people want to get on to Lewis. I don't care because Lewis has achieved what he's achieved, and on top of that, I'm just gonna say this as well. By the way, I don't even think Lewis is doing that badly. People
Yeah.
want to like make out that obviously Russell's got a better result here, Russell's got a better result there, but the impact of Russell finishing ahead of Lewis is not as big of a deal to me because they're not in the championship fight right now. If
Yeah.
Russell was doing something like winning races with that car and Lewis was P13, then yeah,
Then we'd
then I'd be like, you
understand.
know what?
Exactly.
Exactly. I'd have to take a long, hard look at myself and be more objective. But when you're scrabbling and fighting over what P5 and P6, and
There's nothing to
bear in mind
commend there.
exactly, and like George Russell is just like sometimes it's just pure luck. It's just a safety car
Yeah,
away from going
exactly.
in one
Ex-
direction. So people look at that and they want to get onto our guy, but they don't want to look at the other side of the pond where things are really starting to get stinky.
Yeah.
Nah,
But like
but
this is exactly what I was saying when I was talking about Monaco is the performance of the car is there is
mm,
people are not putting into perspective that Monaco is a train that people are following. So go back to how they qualified, go back to where Lewis qualified, go back to how he qualified, right? So Lewis is sitting first with the wrong strap mode and then he couldn't even pull on a decent lap. So he qualified P8 and then he finished P8 because that's just how Monaco works.
mm,
Russell, granted, he got that up on Norris, but that's where the car is. So, Spain, for instance, what a performance! Wow, what more can you say about Lewis Hamilton when he shows you that with the right car he's up there? You can't say he's doing just because he's not sitting in front of the points in front of Russell the whole of the season right now. It's not to say that he's finished. It's not to say that he's not doing the job he's meant to do because in the races that he didn't, it wasn't maybe luck yet, but not just luck. He's also experimenting. Look at Australia, for instance. He finished right behind Russell and he had all those senses on top of him. Look at his podium in, was it Jeddah? Oh, Bahrain. Where did he
Bahrain, I
get
think.
Bahrain, I think. Look at that. So I think people want to slander Lewis for the sake of slandering Lewis, but when you put the races on the table, he's not doing that bad. For someone that is actually saying, okay, do all these experiments on my car, do everything on my car, let Russell have his normal race or he race however he want, he'll do the test and practice, but races all on me. He's not doing bad. Monaco wasn't a bad race in terms of, oh, we're in no man's land. It was exactly how it was supposed to finish. It finished how it started. Different from like the people in the back when Gasly was able to overtake and all that. But the top finishers, it unfortunately for Leclerc, it didn't work out fine because of his team. But it finished how it started. Monaco is always Monaco. Spain was great. Fastest man on track. Who would have known what would have happened if that lap one thing wouldn't have happened? He would have been right up there. Australia was great as well. It wasn't bad. Miami, it was there. They were there. P5, P6, right? And so, what is it that you can sit down objectively and criticize Lewis Hamilton for?
This is
What
exactly it.
races? Yeah,
Nothing, Denny, and
exactly.
that's what it is. But people aren't funny in their people aren't happy in their own homes, so that's why they have to go to other people's homes and try to make
Yeah,
a mess.
and this is
And that's
why I
the
don't
thing.
even engage anymore because I could ask someone that comes in my mention saying, "Oh yeah, Russell, da 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 da," and I'm like, "Okay, well the points are costed on on the Sunday, right? So qualifying doesn't really matter. So let's sit down and you tell me where is Lewis lacking in terms of race pace in his race? Where is he actually being unfortunate in terms of his own driving? You'll mention races where safety car was involved. You'll mention races where he had a crash. There's nothing objectively for you to come and tell me Lewis Hamilton is washed because he's doing exactly what the car is meant to do. And like you said, they're not even fighting for wins. It's not like Russell is up there, top spot, every top step of the podium every weekend in, weekend out, and Lewis is at the back saying, "Oh, guys, I'm struggling. Oh, guys, I'm not working." Both of them are saying they're struggling. Both of them are trying to maximize the points, and they maximize however they can. And then Lewis puts himself in a position where he's like, okay, I don't mind taking in a bit more of weight. I don't mind taking in a different wing. I don't mind taking in this or that because that is data that tomorrow is going to make us triumph. That's data that tomorrow is going to make us have Spain. Simple.
So true, so true, and I'm glad that we got that out there too, because yeah, people need to take heed of themselves and realize that their source is different to our source, and that if they and that ultimately they have their own things to be worrying about. Because yeah, Mercedes, and I've always been consistent with this, they're just one click away, they're just one thing away from this car being revolutionary in terms of
Yeah.
its potential and what George and Lewis are going to achieve from it. So people need to be scared and probably like be mindful that this
Yeah.
isn't the full picture, and that as time goes by, Mercedes are going to continue to push and find different things. And Lewis is the best pioneer, he's the best, not only this driver, but he's an engineer in a sense too, in terms of engineering the future of the car and how it should
Mm-hmm.
drive and what it should do and the experience. There's not a situation I don't think Lewis hasn't been in his career, which
Yeah.
says quite a lot, and yeah, if you're gonna put him with the more experienced drivers, like the Raikkonens, like the Vettels, like the Alonsos, I personally think hands down he offers more than all of them, and that's
Yes.
just facts. But again,
And we've
on the
seen
final,
that.
sorry, Danny, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you and saying we've seen that, and the way Lewis maximizes the and put into perspective something as simple as Carlos Sainz, and this is not even to just slander Sainz, but I will indirectly slander him. But he is in the fastest car. He's in a car that no other car in the grid can be up to par, can upkeep or any of that, and he's bottling it. Weekend in, weekend out. We're expecting something from Sainz, he's up in the wall. We're expecting something from Sainz, he's not finishing the race or whatever, and he's not even getting a what was that, Spain? He was supposed to be at the front. He was supposed to clean up and all that mess Leclerc made. Granted, it wasn't his fault, but he was supposed to be the runner up. He's supposed to be there to clean up, pick up the pieces when Charles can't, when Ferrari messes up, for instance. Even Monaco itself, when Charles they messed up the strategy, Sainz should have been right up there, and maybe let's see if it was a problem there. But compare those two drivers, compare Hamilton and Sainz. One has the fastest car right now with the strongest ERS upgrade we've seen in a few years or something, and the pace is massive. The driver's supposed to just deliver. He's not delivering, but here's Lewis. He's still sitting fastest man on the grid with the third fastest car. He's finishing in points whenever he can. I think he only missed out in points once, maybe twice at max. I don't even remember. I know there's one race he finished, like Imola was the one race he finished like right P13 or something like that. But he's still delivering, right? We're not the fastest car. And this is why I say if Lewis was given the chance to sit in that Ferrari, no one would see a chance in even winning a championship and even thinking about contending for a championship, because that's what Lewis does. He maximizes, he capitalizes off the car that he has. And when you put him next to drivers like Sainz that are supposed to be walking away with just podiums weekend in, weekend out, you don't have any arguments to say, oh, Lewis Hamilton is slacking, because he's not. He just doesn't have the car.
Yeah. Exactly it, exactly. And you know what? It's funny as well, Denny. The same people like, oh, Lewis Hamilton's only winning championships because of his car, are not the people now saying Lewis isn't winning championships because of the car. Or you are like seeing that the car is the defective thing that's giving him more of a hard time this year. So yeah, this time I'm glad that we addressed those haters and just people out there that think that they know wheel and they know nothing about wheel whatsoever. Them Will Buxton lookalikes and whatnot. But we don't give these people too much time either. They got their sauce, and I'm glad that we dished it out to them. And on the final bit, Denny, of my you know 5-star extravaganza of cooking people, I think
Mm.
Denny, I'd be remiss if we didn't have an honest assessment of the FIA reshuffle in terms of the regime that they have, and
Oof.
still the inconsistency we're seeing. And examples I can give is Albon, ignoring the blue flags, 16 blue flags he ignored.
Yeah, apparently it was like around 30 because of the panels as well.
Jesus,
Mm.
and it doesn't even stop there. Even Max and Perez crossing the pit line entry line when we seen
Mm-hmm.
them penalize Sonoda for that. We seen them take
Mm-hmm.
a race win away from Lewis from that in Austria a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it just appears to just be. I know we even touched it as well with the delay to the start of the race, but then the lack of communication as to why it was. Because some people were telling us it was a delay with the start lights. Some people were saying it was the weather conditions
Yeah.
and just this kind of distraction. I call it a distraction because they're more focused on pants and jewelry than they are on the real crux of racing. Just yeah, I just wanted to just ask you, Denny, what's your assessment of them been since they reshuffled things a bit and we're 7 races in now to this championship?
We've talked about this. Team LH has talked about this. We try to bring these people to wake up and understand, and they called us crybabies. They called us crazy. I need these people to feel and understand. Like, it worries me to bits, because where is the sport going to end? Are we just going to watch them break the sport? Because look, right, here's a whole list. F1 rules: tires need to be fitted 5 minutes before the race. Red Bull didn't have the tires until 2 minutes before. Nothing was said about that. No one's talking about that. Mattia Binotto mentioned that, but then he was swept on the rug. Nicholas Latifi, a back marker, held up Carlos Sainz, who's fighting for a win on his outlap. Despite having blue flags waved, Carlos had to beg, get this guy out of the way. No one mentioned anything. No one's talking about that. Alex Albon was shown 30 flags, whatever, blue flags, still refused to move from Charles, who's fighting for a championship. Mind you, a championship, yeah? It's not even just a win. And then he got no reprimands, no penalties. And then usually, what, after 5 blue flags, you get called into the stewards to be talked about. No one's talking about that. And then both Red Bulls cross the lane exit. They lodge in a protest to talk, hey, what is going on? This is what the race directors say. And how are you? Do you know what I mean? Like, what are you trying to say? Are the rules not being followed because of Red Bull? Da 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 da. Both processes are dismissed because we cut and paste, and the race directors doesn't overrule, and you're creating precedents, right? You're creating these new rules because you want to protect one team, and this is how I see it. I might not be being objective here, and I would correct me if I'm wrong anything, but this is all in spawn of protecting one team, if not one driver. And you're creating things and saying, oh yeah, race direct. Do you know how aggressive that wording is of, yeah, race director notes don't really matter, it's everything that's in the regulations? What are you trying to say for future races? What are you saying for the next back marker who decides to hold? What if the next back marker is George Russell that's holding up someone so Lewis can win? Are you going to take the same approach? What if the next person to cross the line or to step on the line is Lewis Hamilton? Are you going to take the same approach, or is this all in light of that specific team winning? that specific driver being at the front and his points not being deducted. And this is why F1 worries me, is where is the sport going? There's something fundamentally wrong with how things are being organized at the moment, because it seems like you continually choose to target this one person. What is a stud going to do? For instance, is the question that I impose when someone else has a wedding ring. Oh, because religion, da 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 da. Well, if safety is paramount, you would request those rings to be removed just as much as a stud. But it's not paramount, is it? It's just this one person you want to target, you want to get out of the way. And this is how I'm going to see every time FIA is brought up to something. There's no way these 5 instances are coincidences. No way. Twice is one too many, you know? And so we need to start having, I mean, I'm done having the conversation. We suffered with Abu Dhabi. We suffered with the 2021 season because it wasn't just Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi was the climax, it was where everything happened. But we saw Brazil 2022, like 2 millimeters, that zero point 0.2, you're trying to disqualify someone for that. And every other penalty that Verstappen didn't get and Lewis got and all of that. And so I feel like now it's in their hands. It's their conversation to start having, and the headlines are starting to pop up where Matthias talking about being in, oh, he felt unfair, that this was unfair, da, 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 da. And now we're just gonna sit back and eat our popcorn and be like, okay, when we asked you to speak on this, you said we were over exaggerating, we were over analyzing, nothing happened, and now you're starting to feel that this whole thing is rigged. This whole thing is biased because they know who they want to win and they're showing it to your face. But it worries me as a spectator because I wonder, until when? Until when are we going to ignore these issues? Until when are they going to sweep these things under the rug because they want this one person to constantly win, this one team to constantly be at the front? It's a long conversation. It's sad, unfortunately, but it's what we're sitting with right now. And I hope more people start to notice. And I hope it's just basically telling us that this new direction they're taking isn't really changing anything, because we're still having the same problems. 5 races into the season, 6 races into the season.
That's exactly it, Denny. With these people, essentially, they're just taking piss and calling it shit. It is just the same crap, but just on a different day, and I can't even like capitalize the words. It's like how unfair and how unreasonable they've been with some of their actions and lack of actions in some cases. Well, I could go further and say, obviously, Sergio Perez overtook Sainz under a safety car procedure, and
Yeah,
then they didn't invert the positions back. He only inverted the positions once Max was well down the road, and Science had lost his opportunity to try and make a
for
move
attack.
on
Yeah.
Max. Yeah, and and it's the inconsistency as well. This Magnussen, again, you could say that the Magnussen and Lewis thing was maybe a racing incident if you wanted to be liberal or take the liberal view, but then Ocon gets a penalty for, I think it was the move on Mick Schumacher. But then Daniel Ricciardo doesn't get a penalty for basically wiping out Science at Imola, in a very similar kind of incident. So
So, yeah.
it's really shocking. And like you said as well, like at this point, it's like Team LH, we're just tired because how many times or what actually has to happen for them and for other people to take heed? Because all the Ferrari fans that you mentioned, they weren't saying anything. And now that it's them
No.
that they're drawing the short end of the stick because they're the
Yeah.
ones that are subjected to the unfair kind of treatment. Now all of a sudden they're saying, "Oh, that's not right. That's not fair. This isn't how it should be." But that's how it's been for a very long time.
For a
And like you
very
said as well, just with and it's a huge distraction. What's going on with like the jewelry? The guys have been wearing their jewelries and their garment for years. Like Lewis has been wearing his nose piercings and stud piercings and whatever he wants to wear for years. What is it to you? Just like, and if God forbid something happens, at least, I think if you're doing it for the sake of safety, you can advise people. And if people don't want to take that advice, fair enough. But
Mhm.
when you're starting to encroach upon people's personal kind of beings. You're encroaching upon people's personal rights, like people's ways of expressing themselves. It's just wrong. And where does it stop? Because it will be piercings, then it's gonna be pants, then it's gonna be, oh, we don't want this type of driver. We don't want like a driver from this background. Oh, like
Yeah.
there's a war going on, we're gonna ban this driver. Like it's really weird. And it like I think what they need to do is pick what they want to do. Because if it's a case where F1's gonna be entertainment and not a sport, then that's
Yeah.
cool. I'll go and watch other sports. I'll go and watch Indy 5. I'll go and watch the Indy 500. I'll watch the IndyCar series. I'll go and watch the GT3s and the GT World series. I'll go and watch other motorsport disciplines that have more integrity, if that's the case. But don't like lie to us and say, yeah, we're concerned about the driver safety. Yeah, we want to make the racing a lot better. And then
Hmm.
every single opportunity there's, you either disapply, you don't approve the rules, you don't follow the rules, you make new rules up on the spot
Yeah.
just for the
And you're
sake
not
of the
making
story.
racing better. Racing isn't described by what a stud is or isn't. You know what I mean? Is he wants to wear his stud, let him wear it. Everything else gets like he takes off all his chains, all his watches, all his bracelets, all his rings, all his earrings. He makes sure that is just one stud that is supposedly covered by your so safe helmets. What could possibly happen?
This is it. This is exactly it, Denny. And they're very quick to say, "Oh, Lewis isn't setting a good example to the kids out there." But then you've got Max on the radio, effing and jeffing on the radio, and I get it. That's human, but at the same time, when it's him, oh, it's fine. Oh, it's just it's human for people to get frustrated. Oh,
Yeah.
well, it's just heat at the moment. When it's Lewis, oh no, he's
No,
being
the
too
double
aggressive.
stand. Yeah, the double standards are surreal because you don't even have to get to just Max. London Norris was seen cursing and being sad about the interns and all of that. And he got sympathy from the world. It was absolutely madness. Everyone felt for Lando. Everyone is so sad this happened to Lando. It was his first win and all of that. And then you look at what was it with the was it Sochi for Lewis, where he was upset that they made him lose the position, da 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 da, da but he had to pit and he had to come on Instagram and apologize for that because the heat of the moment, da 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 da. Why? Every single time Lewis gets no sympathy. It's never okay. He's upset because they made a strategy that he didn't agree with. It's always everyone else but Lewis. Less everyone else can do it, Lewis can't do it. And this is why people say, oh, we race against one, because it's exactly what it seems like. You want everyone to be human, everyone to have better racing until that person is Lewis Hamilton. And then you sit in there saying, not this one. Not the not the nigga. Not him. Everyone
Exactly.
else. Yeah, everyone else but him, okay? He can't say anything in the radio. And also, even when he says something so subliminal as, hey, do not tell me George's times. I want to hear the race leader's times. Why are you broadcasting that? What are you trying to do? And this is a tweet that I put out is, it's been 6 races. I'm not good at maths here, but I think if every race has 4 sessions, how much is that? Every
Six,
race weekend has
12,
four races, and we've had 6 races, whatever, 20 odd sessions that we've had. Lewis Hamilton listens to George Russell's times every single time. I have, and I kid you not, I have his onboard on every single session. I never miss one session. I hear George's times in comparison to Lewis's every single session. The one session, yeah, Denz, the one session he says, I don't want to hear George's time. Only tell me the fastest is the one session they broadcast. Why?
Listen, Denny, I'll give you a better one. They never show the graphics, like the time delta between a leader and a lapped car. Why did they think it was necessary in Imola
To
to
show
show the time
Lewis's.
delta between Lewis and Verstappen when he was getting lapped?
Exactly.
And this is what I mean by whether it's unconscious, whether it's conscious at this stage, I don't care. But like, no one can sit here and tell me that they don't give Lewis a hard time, that they don't disrespect him on a weekly basis, that they don't value Lewis. And the
Mm.
saddest thing is, Denny, I don't think they ever will until he's left the sport.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate because this is the greatest to ever do it, to ever walk here, to grace you with everything that he is doing, to come in and say, let's change the sport, let's make it a bit a place where it's inclusivity is here. I'm coming in here, I'm giving it my all, I'm letting you step on me and all of that. I just want you to be a better sport. He's bringing in more people are watching it and all of that stuff, bringing in change, helping youngsters come in, come up. Because if you look at it, he's the benchmark. He's been doing it before. You couldn't even wear uh, anything outside of your t-shirt from your team gear. Now you're able to do that. Before you couldn't do activities outside just F1. Now everyone is into skydiving and music and sharing their things on Instagram and all of that. Lewis did that for you. He allowed you to have that door. He allowed F1 to be a bit more he did things so that F1 could be a bit more flexible, and no one's sitting back and saying, "Hey, Lewis Hamilton started this. We criticized it. We criticized him for doing it, but now that we see Charles being able to do it, maybe we should thank Lewis." No, instead, let's embarrass the one driver who's carrying the sport for us. Is Yeah, it's insane. It's a whole conversation that just goes down this crazy spiral where you ask yourself, is this racially motivated? The answer is probably going to be yes.
I think like Denny, there's no other rationale you could give for it. And I mean, I've got like Georgina like messaging me in the background as well. She's been very amused with our episode, so I know this one's gonna be a banger. But I think she just said it perfectly to me, just like on DM as well. She's just like, the FA are just trying to create drama and they're trying to basically cash in on entertainment. But this is not entertainment. This is a sport at the end of the day, and you've got people's
Exactly.
lives, in your hand as well. You cannot
Exactly.
substitute or subsidize people's livelihood for the sake of entertainment. It does not work like that, and it's not
Yeah.
good enough. And it shouldn't be like people shouldn't have the view, oh, it's boring because Lewis was winning all the races. People should respect Lewis, and they should respect Mercedes too for the feats that they were achieving.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
like obviously there's always going to be a few that don't like it when one person's winning all the time. That's the human part of it. But when Sebastian Vettel was doing it in the Red Bull era, not many people had an issue with it. When Michael Schumacher was doing it, not many people had an issue with it. So why is it when it's Lewis now? And the thing is, it's not that Lewis wins one type of race. Lewis could win a race with three tires. Lewis could win a race on splinters. Lewis could win a race that he shouldn't even win, quite
Yeah.
frankly. He's given us so many different outcomes over the years. And even now, even when he doesn't have the best car, he's still putting in 100, and I think he's given 130% because he knows it's required of him now, and people still can't accept it. And it's just crazy to me. I just don't know. And on a subtopic as well, Denny, I know we're kind of like going over the time, and I really appreciate you taking time
No
out of your schedule as well
worries.
to do this
I'm
episode.
enjoying this.
Thank you. And I'm glad you are as well, because here we like to get into the deep questions. We don't just want to ask the superficial stuff or, the kind of clickbaity kind of questions. But on top of that,
Yeah.
too, we had another Martin Brundle gate at the weekend. So, good old Jolly Martin Brundle goes on the grid. And for the sake of this person, I can't remember what their name was. He tries to
Is
speak to
it
this young lady.
Bridgerton? Ashley Simone Ashley?
I think it might be. And he says, "Can you have a word with us?" And immediately the security's like, "No, sorry, like you haven't made an
Mm.
arrangement with us to for this interview. I can't let this continue." And lots of people were out there saying, "Oh, well, celebrities get like free kind of like VIP suites to come to the Grand Prix. Given an interview with Sky, it should be like the minimum they do." I don't see it that way, Denny. I wanted to get your thoughts on this, but for me personally, like there's no obligation for a celebrity to give an interview. And my problem with Martin Brundle and the way he does these grid walks is there's not a lot of compassion and there's not a lot of respect there. And if you're going to somebody like Serena or Venus Williams, and they're fully aware, of how Lewis Hamilton gets disrespected by your company that you work for on a regular basis, what entitlement is there on them to give you an interview or for them to tell you anything? If
Yeah.
they say to you, "Listen, I don't want to speak to you," or "I don't know enough about Formula One, I'm not comfortable with this," and you keep shoving a microphone in front of their face, I personally think that you deserve any slander you get from people online and criticisms because
Yeah.
it's just not on. But what's your take on that?
Do you know what? People that watch Formula One can be some entitled pricks, and it has to be said because I don't care if and think about it this way: if these celebrities are getting paid to go to these things because Formula One wants them to be there, is because the teams. It's the thing with Megan, for instance. Cash App paid her to go there for to be in the Red Bull thing, whatever. Da, 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 da. They want to market the sport, and it's the thing that Georgina was saying. They want this to be entertaining, and the only reason they're going to bring in more people is if they have influential people on the grid. And so if F1 is paying me, I have all the right to say no to whatever I don't want to do because these people get endorsements, right? If Sky Sports isn't paying Simone Ashley, I don't know if her name's Simone Ashley or Ashley Simone, so I'm sorry if I'm getting it wrong, but if Sky Sports not paying them, it's not paying her, it's not giving her the time of the day. Like, I mean, it's not giving her what she's worth for being there, giving an interview. She's not, she doesn't have to. Martin is not entitled to people's times, and they need to understand that. And as fans, you need to understand that as well. Granted, you sitting at home, you probably say, "Oh, I would give everything to be in the grid." Well, yeah, you're not. So sit at home and eat whatever you're given, right? Because these celebrities have lives. They're big in their own world, right? Venus is big in the tennis world. Um, Simone is big in the acting world. She literally just outsold one of the biggest seasons for Bridgerton or something like that. So these people know their worth and they have their agendas as well. They're not there. Maybe they don't even care about the cause. They just found an easy $100 million to $100,000, not a million, $100,000 to be appearing in the TV, and they went. So you don't know what these people are on about. You don't know why they're there. You don't know if they were invited by a driver, if they were invited by a team, if someone paid them, if they're getting a lot of money just by standing there for 5 minutes. So you need to maybe tone down the entitlement and stop thinking that. And this reminds me of what someone's, I don't even want to mention their names because I don't want to like bring back things, but someone said, "Oh, this is our home, so when you come in here you need to respect the people and the traditions and all of that." No, you need to respect people that are there because just as much as you, they also are there to maybe watch the cars and not be spotlight in the grid walk. And rightfully so. I think you're kind of lucky because I watched this video just this morning because I didn't know what had happened. And Martin was kind of respectful, I think, of Simone this time. I think he learned with Megan how things can quickly turn into, and it's also because he's outrageous. He's outrageous. His encounters are always with people of color, and so it started to become a pattern slowly and slowly. So I think this time he handled himself well, where he was like, "Well, hi," and the guy interrupted and was like, "Sorry, she doesn't want to do interviews." He said, "Well, if you don't want to, that's fine." And he moved away. He apologized, but it's just for the fans is understanding that humans are humans and sometimes they're not going to want to do things and they're not obliged to do it just because you're sitting at home thinking, "Oh my gosh, grid walk is the best thing ever. I would give my limb, I will sell my mom to go to grid walk." Not everyone is going to think of that because sometimes some people are maybe just getting into the sport. Some people are there just to see Lewis Hamilton. Some people are there just because, like I said, got a big fat endorsement and they're like, "Oh, 5 minutes on the grid, sure," you know. And I think Formula One at this moment, and people need to understand this, and I'm sorry that this sounds harsh, but at the second, Formula One needs the celebrities more than the celebrities need Formula One. And maybe that is a very harsh thing for old fans to grasp, but unfortunately is the reality where the sponsors are taking F1 to. Wanting to expand means you go into uncharted territory, means you go into other people's territory, right? And when you're getting into other people's territory, you knock on the door, you ask for favors, you're the one who needs them to be there to help you be something in there, right? So these Americans are very well known. These people, well, I'm not saying specifically Simone because I don't think she's American, but American like say Megan Thee Stallion or anyone, when you go to Miami, when you go to these places and you have these basketball players, blah 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 blah, you want them. F1, Liberty Media, FOM, all these people, they want these celebrities to be there because they need them in order to expand their sport. Otherwise, what's the point of even trying to get 3 races in the US? Right? You want these influential people to be there, and they don't have to give you the time of the day if they don't want to. If they don't want to do interviews, if you don't pay them enough, they don't have to do it. So stop being freaking entitled pricks and just watch the show. It doesn't change anything if Martin doesn't get an interview. You don't even know these people. Why are you getting upset in your couch? Calm down.
This is exactly it, and the other point I mentioned as well is these people, like, they watch Lewis get slandered and like belittled by the media every weekend. You think the same people are going to be willing to give their time to chat to you when you're dissing somebody from their friendship group or their circle?
Yeah.
They're not, and that's and again another double standard. When drivers like Max or Kimi don't want to do anything with the media, they have very little kind of like responsibilities in the media. Oh yeah, no, it's understandable because the media take what they say out of context, and they come up with excuses for them. But Lewis, no, any other person of color, oh no, you're on Formula One's territory and you should be nah. And Denny, I'm so glad it's not just me. And I think say as well, you've come and said it yourself too, that people need to have lose a sense of entitlement because at the end of the day, the exposure that they're getting from these celebrities like DJ Khaled and Russell Westbrook and everybody going to these races is enough. I don't see why you need to force people
Yeah.
to do stuff they don't want to do.
And let me
It's
tell you
just
something. I think you said something very important there where when it's people of color, it's always this chat about our home and da 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 da, and you need to give us the time of the day. And it's something so important to always remember is elitist environments will forever be a threat for black people because black people were never born into elitism. And that's one thing we fail to realize every single time is Lewis Hamilton is not at home. Venus Williams, when she stands on that track, is not at home. Megan Thee Stallion is not at home. These people are not at home because that's not their home. This is a niche sport that they were never born into. This is an environment where they're always going to be a threat because I mean, think about someone coming in that's like a stranger, or whatever, coming in, knocking on your door and be like, "Hey, can I please use your phone?" And you're like, "Yeah, sure." And he's like, "Can I come in? Because it's cold outside." You're going to be a bit skeptical. You're going to be, "Okay, yeah, sure." You're going to be nice. You're going to be sympathetic. You're going to let them in. But the whole time they're inside your home, you're going to be thinking thoughts in your head. What are they going to do? Are they going to rob me? Are they going to kill me? Is this safe? Are they trying to do something? I'm going to get are they going to call other people? Because that is a stranger in your home. Or think about it like a virus or something. I'm not saying black people are viruses, but think about when when you have a virus in your body, your antibodies are like, oh shit, what is this? We need to fight this. This needs to get out. And that is always how it's going to be so long as unfortunately is deeply rooted. Slavery is still a thing. Black people are still being put down. People of color are still not welcome. And so long as these sports continue to be, and I think this is why Lewis Hamilton wants change to happen so fast and so quick. And he knows it's not going to happen fast, but he wants to do it whilst he's still in the sport because maybe tomorrow someone is going to come in that is not as strong as him or not as talented as him. Right? Imagine a black guy in the grid and he's getting whooped. He's getting back marker. He's getting overlapped, lapped every single race. That's gonna be hell for this person.
mm,
You know what I mean? And so I think the reason why we need to start changing is so we can understand that black people aren't a threat. This can be our home as well. We are evolving. It's 2022. You don't have to be selective with the people that come inside your home. And it's a long discussion, but I think elitist environments will forever be a threat for black people because black people were never born into elitism. It's something that people need to start understanding. And Formula One is unfortunately an elitist environment.
This is exactly it, and you touched on it there as well, Denny. Like, I'm so proud of Lewis for what he's doing with the sport because it's not only just for himself, it's like he's building a foundation, for the next engineers, for the next racing drivers, for the next, people that look like him or come from a background like him, and you've got great like commissions like Mission 44, which are now trying
Mm,
to open the doors as well to people from different backgrounds, lesser backgrounds, people that wouldn't traditionally even get the time of day. Now there's going to be opportunities for them in the future to actually pursue their dreams. And at the end of the day, I don't see how a person's like skin color should prevent or prohibit them from being able to achieve their goals or dreams or ambitions. And I think it just speaks and it's a testament to Lewis and everything he's achieved and everything that he's continuing to do for the people. And that's why I think of Lewis as the people's champ, in terms of what he does, what he's offered to the sport, and the legacy that he's going to leave behind.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm really grateful that we had this conversation as well. And then to wrap it up as well, Denny, we've got the upcoming Grand Prix in over a fortnight's time at Baku. Then we also have Canada, which we haven't raced at for quite some
In
years
a
due
long
to COVID.
time. Yes.
Exactly. So what are your thoughts and predictions going into this race, from the Mercedes perspective, but also just on the wider kind of scheme of things?
I don't know. I think Mercedes is going to start getting the performance. I think I'm torn personally because sometimes I have this feeling like, okay, maybe we are a midfield team this season, but part of me doesn't want to accept that. And Spain just brought things out. We're like, okay, maybe we can do well where we have straight line speed because George was a testament to straight line speed that started to show when he Max couldn't even overtake him without the advantage of DRS and all of that. So I have a feeling Lewis is going to get a win in one of these races. I'm hoping it's in Canada because that's where everything started. Maybe the universe is getting us amped up and ready for a win there, and it's going to be historical. But I think Mercedes is going to be there battling. I think Baku is going to be the track. It's going to be it's a power hungry track as well. We need that power. I think that second PU is looking very strong for Mercedes. The straights are oof, that straight. Just thinking about that straight in Baku scares me. But I think Ferrari is going to be the team to beat. I don't know why. I think their engine is way in for that specific track. I'm hoping we get a Mercedes podium, both of cars up there. I think we will because I don't see why the upgrades that we brought in Spain wouldn't work in Baku. Maybe someone else with a bit more of a technical mind knows a bit more than me. But I think Baku is going to be the place to be for Mercedes.
Absolutely, and I think you're spot on there as well. I'm in a similar street in terms of I think Baku will be a good hunting ground for Mercedes. Obviously, like you mentioned, the long straights will help. And in Barcelona, Mercedes was like the highest in speed traps most of the time as well. So I think they've definitely got a package that can work there. And even with Canada, that's more of a conventional race circuit too, with the corners, and even that has a long straight, in the final sector before you get to the Wall of Champions for the final turn or chicane. So again, there's some really good races that I'm sure we're going to see, in the next couple of weeks with that car. And ultimately, yeah, I mean Ferrari as well looks like they've been like holding their cars quite close to their
Yeah,
chest. I
yeah.
think in Spain we even saw a kind of move forward with them, and it seemed to be until Leclerc had that reliability issue that car was just in a completely different dimension. So they're also going to be looking quite strong. But then,
Mm.
yeah, I'm also intrigued to see what Pirelli will do with the tires this year, particularly at
Oh
Baku,
yeah,
because I know
yeah.
last year we had
And
tire
then with
gains.
Baku also you don't have like setup wise, you don't have to you're not as forced to make a choice with Monaco, like as in Monaco. So Monaco, you need to basically choose between downforce for all the twisty beats or less drag for the straight. It's kind of an either or. I think with Baku, it's much easier for you to find a setup where you're like, okay, we're good to go, because you don't have as much slow corners and all of that. You focus a lot on the power. So it's going to be fun to see where we're at.
Exactly. And then fantasy question, Denny, I wanted to put forward to you too. If there was one race you could go to on the calendar this year,
Ooh.
and you got the opportunity to go for a hot lap with Lewis Hamilton, what track would you
Hmm.
pick?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think Japan.
Suzuka,
I
okay.
think that, yeah, I think Suzuka would be it for me. Either that or do I want to say, do we have Qatar this year?
Unfortunately, I don't think we do. But again, that was a, and also this that lap Lewis did in qualifying last year, Qatar was mesmerizing.
Yo, let me tell you, let me tell you what that I'm kind of sad that Jeddah the track was changed and to benefit I don't want to say to benefit Max, but the corners changed and all of that because Jeddah would have been a great spot also to to be taken on a hot lap when the corners are all twisty. But I think Suzuka would be my one spot to go. The lap record still Lewis's as well.
Yeah, and I think again, it'll be interesting to see how the cars perform there because it's a lot of high speed downforce that's required for the
Mm,
quite twisty kind of first sector. You need quite a
yes,
compliant car there. But
yes.
again, these ground effect cars, they seem very nice and produce obviously a lot of downforce in the high speed kind of corners. So it'll be interesting to
I
see
think turn
130R.
11 would be my favorite. To see Lewis take turn 11 would be my favorite, like the very twisty one.
Exactly, yeah. Just it'd be breathtaking to
Where
imagine
would
this.
you go?
Oh, well, now that you said Suzuka, because that was actually on my list as well.
Was it? Oh, great minds.
I know, right? Think alike. I'd say Silverstone. I think home
Mm,
race, just kind of, you got Maggots and Beckett's as well, high speed, kind of flowing corners.
props.
And just, yeah, cops. Yeah, yeah, obviously, because you don't,
Don't forget.
apparently, according to some team principles, you don't stick a wheel up the inside in cops, allegedly.
Yeah.
But, Lewis does, and I'm all for it. But yeah, just, this, the kind of, oh, you know what? Nah, I'm gonna scrap that. Brazil. Brazil.
Oh, crazy, 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 crazy. I'll never forget Brazil. Do you know,
Oh.
I wrote an article in Brazil and I had to write about corners every single time. And to this day, I feel like I just have all the name corners out of in my head. It just replay.
Like it's just such a legendary circuit as well, isn't it? And again, like historical for Lewis, winning the championship there as well. His
Yeah.
connections with the fans and obviously Senna, the
Mm.
purple flares. Oh god, the purple flares. I
Yeah,
need that.
Interlagos 2021 was insane. I just feel like this year I hope it's like 10 times better because the W13 is just acting up. We need some love there.
Yeah, I think if the W13 gets there and it sees the reaction, I think she'll get act together because she'd
Yeah.
just be feeling this the wave of energy just from the fans and just how spectacular the scenes were that day. I would never forget, honestly. But Denny, that's gonna conclude our episode today. But just one, I want to thank you a million for coming on the podcast today. It's been so awesome just to chop it up with you and just to hear
Thank
your
you.
responses and just honestly, like
I hope I
you're
did
so
well.
amazing at
I
this.
hope I did well.
You did phenomenally well, honestly. Like I think you, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised then if I see you on Sky Sports one day, and I really hope you do,
Ah,
so you can
thank
flipping
you.
kick Paul the Resta and and Crofty and all those
Fighting
guys,
them.
Nico
They're
Rosberg,
like,
just
Lewis is not
give
doing
them a jab.
well. I'm like, no, 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 no. Wait. What do you mean Lewis is not doing well? He's doing as great as he can. Step back.
Oh, you would stick it on them, honestly. Like they need that as well because they're too comfortable disrespecting the
They are.
goat.
You
But
know.
Denny,
Thank
honestly,
you.
no, this we're more than happy, and we need to get you back on for another episode. Perhaps once the
Yes,
season is.
please. Let's do that. Thank you so much for having me. Absolutely love it. I feel like FIA Girly also needs to expand a bit more because she's just tweets now. So I think starting to come up a bit more out the shell should be fine. So thank you for having me. I love, love, love having this conversation. I feel like we could have gone for 2 more hours. But
Genuinely, I feel like we were just getting started. That's the
you're
thing,
right,
and
you're right. But it
and
was lovely.
honestly, I'm
Yeah.
so proud of you. You know, you're one of the most commendable people in our community, and it's one of those ones where if I'm at work and I can't watch the Formula One like on the
Oh,
screen or tablet because I'm at
yeah.
work, my managers might look at me. I'll be like, you know what? Let me just pre FIA Girly's tweets because I know I can get some reliable information
Hey,
from there. And she's such a great mind as well. And
thank
honestly,
you.
I hope that this appearance is going to give you the confidence with other podcasts and other appearances
Yeah.
you're going to make. And I got a little stir that you're going to be on Quick Stop soon as well, which is a
Yeah.
great platform. Shout out to
Oh,
Nyasha and Tandy
yeah.
as well.
Shout out to them. I know Nyash has been trying to get me on there for a while, and I've been a bit skeptical, a bit scared. I hope I don't get cold feet before that, but hopefully it's gonna go great. So looking forward to that.
You're going to do exceptionally well. And I think that
Thank
episode is just going to be an absolute banger. I can't wait for it, to be honest.
you.
But
We hope and
yeah,
pray. Thank you so much.
just I know Denny, I know. Just like, in Denny we trust. Denny plan. Forget L plan. This is
Forget
L
our
Denny plan.
plan. This is Denny plan. Thank
Oh
you.
yeah. But
It was
Denny, just
lovely chatting to
you
you.
mentioned that you've written some articles as well. Is there any way our
Mm-hmm.
listeners can find those? And I know again there's a top secret James Bond type kind of thing that you've got cooking in the background, but are
Yeah.
there any other projects you could let us know about that, we can
I
look
wish
forward
I
to?
could just spill the beans. But no, right now I run obviously FIA Girly, so this is where people will know me for. But I also have the Hamilton Access, which is a platform that gives basically access to the bits and pieces that the media doesn't really like to talk about when it comes to Lewis. So I created that platform to be completely 100% for Lewis so people can get the nitty gritty that people don't talk about. So things with Mission 44, the projects that he has behind the scenes, even like the races itself, there's a lot of things that get overlooked. So I do go back to them, analyze them, and write articles in there. So if anyone enjoys some Lewis content, email age, the Hamilton Access is probably the place to be.
Awesome. Well, you heard it here first, guys. Make sure you check out the Hamilton Access. And Denny, thank you once again for this
Thank you
excellent
so much for
episode.
having me.
Anytime. Listen, DND takeover. We love to see it
Let's
on Stripping
go.
the Dip in. Energy. And yeah, we'll make sure that we leave all of your handles and obviously the link to the articles as well on our website. Make sure if you're not following Denny, which is like a crime personally, that you go and follow her right now. And again, massive thank you to Denny. We support her with all her endeavors and everything that she's doing as well. She's a star.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Well, guys, this has been our episode of Stripping the Dipping. Usual co-host AMG Denz, aka Chocolate Superman. And until next time, we've got a very interesting month of guests coming up. So make sure you stay tuned. And as always, stay blessed, stay focused, work hard, drink water, eat fruits, make money, eat honey. And I'll catch you again soon. Take it easy.